we try to encourage eliminating manual process wherever possible, whether that is using a drop-down field instead of a free-form field, whether that's encouraging people to fill out a form in a help center instead of sending an email. The more we can get the end user to provide accurate information, the better off we're going to be. And then we want to reduce redundancy and reduce opportunities for error by using a tool like yours to automatically populate those fields. It's not only going to save the end users or the agent's time, but it's also going to save your team's time in terms of accountability.
Hi, Brandon. We've met before, and I'd probably say you're one of the most helpful people in the Zendesk ecosystem today. You're one of the first names I came across when I was looking to learn more about Zendesk, and we'll dive into the topic of Zendesk automation. But before that, can you tell me about your origin story and how you got to 729?
Yeah, Hassan, thanks for having me, and happy to be here. Happy to be part of the conversation as always. I actually came to 729 by way of my former employer that I was doing work for as a Zendesk admin. And before that, I was in sales. So I came from the world of sales and I had the opportunity to learn Zendesk at my previous employer, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I relied heavily on the community that Zendesk has to get my questions answered. And the more I learned, the more I fell in love with the product and decided to become certified as an admin. And that broken path led me to 729, where I was actually trying to get 729 Solutions to do an integration for my previous company. Turns out I got hired, and now I am the one that built the integration. So we've come full circle, but it's been a labor of love all along the way.
That's awesome. I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's awesome. And I also have to point out a few things because you do so much. Like you were just on a AI panel for the Zendesk community. You talk a lot about integrating recently with Salesforce and Zendesk. Like you're always putting out helpful content. Are there any types of, are there like any rhymes or reasons for the typical industries that you work with?
I mean, it all, as Zendesk will tell you, it always comes down to customer service and customer experience and providing a good customer experience. And whether you are working in retail or manufacturing, your end users are expecting a level of service that you have to rise to meet that occasion. And Zendesk is one of the tools that can help you do that. And so our job at 729 is to help you implement and integrate that system to make your agent's role as efficient as possible. So you spend less time worrying about the tool and more time worrying about the customer.
Yeah, 729, you guys do so much. You work across a number of different industries. Coming from the not side, we have this app, and what that app does is it's called AI Ticket Autofill. It pulls in information automatically that's available on the ticket and puts it in the Zendesk fields before agents open them. So there's no more copy paste and no more mistakes and no more tedious work. Of course, we talk to clients all the time, so I have this one-to-one view. Like when they have that problem, they come to us. But I'm really curious to know from your perspective and with all the range that you have, how does that kind of functionality really benefit companies using Zendesk? What does that look like from a business perspective?
Yeah, so I will say that Zendesk has a very intentional customer profile that they've gone to market with. They assume that your customer is always going to be the one opening the ticket, that they've already self-served, that they're filling out a form on a Zendesk website or guide or help center knowledge base, and that you know everything about them. You know their birthday, you know their blood type, you know their phone number. And that is really great in theory, but in practice, what we find is a lot of customers don't know who their end users are until the moment that they contact them. And when they contact them, as far as we've come with technology, email is still a primary driver of customer support, whether they're filling out a third-party form on your WordPress website and sending that through an email form submit to your inbox or to your Zendesk instance, or you're filling out a type form or a form stack, or just sending an email, just opening up an email inbox and sending an email to support at insert your company here. And in all of those other scenarios where you're not filling out a Zendesk form, traditionally there's a manual lift. We talk about efficiency of the agent. The agent can only be as efficient as the tool that they're using. And so if the part of the agent's job is every time they get a new email or new ticket open, they have to come in and look for the order number, find it, and copy it and paste it into another ticket field for the purposes of reporting, for the purposes of workflow, for the purposes of escalation. That's time that they need to spend on that tool process. And that's also opening an opportunity for error. We could mistype or rekey something the wrong way, and suddenly somebody's getting the wrong order. So we try to encourage eliminating manual process wherever possible, whether that is using a drop-down field instead of a free-form field, whether that's encouraging people to fill out a form in a help center instead of sending an email. The more we can get the end user to provide accurate information, the better off we're going to be. And then we want to reduce redundancy and reduce opportunities for error by using a tool like yours to automatically populate those fields. It's not only going to save the end users or the agent's time, but it's also going to save your team's time in terms of accountability and making sure that everything's correct.
That makes so much sense. And yeah, and that's so well, and also too, I'm happy I get to ask you that because you're right. It's like that's a such a eloquent way to put it, right? Reduce redundancy and reduce chance for error. And even I like that comment that you said about drop downs, and it's funny because a lot of times, even for us, we have clients that we work with. Yes, we can also autofill the drop down too, and but that means that they're further along than other companies, and that's almost like a maturity that they have there. And could you, I mean, I think like at large, I'm understanding how that looks. Do you have examples of it? And you don't have to name any names or anything, but what kind of data are they sending in that has to be copy paste that's critical for these tickets to be solved?
Yeah, order numbers is a big one. We see that a lot in e-com and retail where, somebody's asking, "Hey, where's my order?" And you say, "Okay, what's the order number?" And you're just having an email conversation back and forth with the agent. And if you've prepped them, you say, "Please provide your order number." Even if it's an email, you say, "Please, when you're emailing us, provide your order number or your billing address," other piece of data that you then have to copy and paste into another area. And so order numbers are big. Tracking numbers for shipping are big. But we also see other things like, what's your best contact phone number? What's the best time to reach you? All of those, anything that you would normally put on a customer contact form, if you're not using a Zendesk customer contact form, unless you've built some sort of other integration or you're already using the Not solution, that information is just being dropped in to the description or the public reply on a Zendesk ticket, and the onus is on the agent to parse that data. Once we get that data into a ticket field, we can build business rules and automations around it. We can put some AI power behind it in terms of intelligent routing, and we can very quickly build reporting on it. And those are all things that kind of 729 specializes in helping customers maximize their ROI on the platform once we get the data where it needs to be.
Yeah, and when you jumped ahead too, because that was going to be my next question, which is like, so now there's all this. So now they have that. There's right. They have the order number, or they have the correct phone number, or when they want to be reached, or things like that. I often find that even when we talk to clients just about our apps, we are often noticing gaps in their Zendesk setup that they could also they're gaps that they could fill. And we're doing our app, which is this automation piece for parsing or for other aspects. But I know like there's so much more room to grow for them. So once all that information's there, what is it that can actually be done when you talk about custom routing or like what does that look like?
Every client runs differently, and so there's going to be a million different use cases, but the ones that we see most often are ticket routing. So using that information in a business rule. So if a ticket is created or a ticket is updated and it has this particular piece of information in that sidebar, be it a prioritization, like a severity issue, or a tracking number, some option that is indicated by the end user that this ticket needs to follow a certain course of action, we can build business logic using triggers, automations, and sometimes even webhooks to get that information updated or get that information to the right eyes faster. And sometimes it's really about time sensitivity, especially when we're talking about somebody who's saying cancel my order or update my order. I put the wrong shipping address. You have a very limited time between the transaction to fulfillment where you have to make changes to that order at the warehouse level. And so the amount of time that it sometimes takes for somebody on the tier one level to pick up that ticket, to recognize what it is, to fill in the appropriate information and to escalate it to the appropriate team, that's time lost that sometimes you can catch it in time and sometimes you're sending out a second package and putting a recall on the first package because it already went to FedEx. And so, you've got time-based opportunities for efficiency gains there that can really have an impact on the bottom line. But beyond that, unless you can, was it Peter Drucker? The if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. That putting this information in a ticket body traditionally doesn't do you a whole lot of good from a reporting standpoint because Zendesk Explorer doesn't report on ticket comments, but it does report on ticket fields. So this can very quickly get you in, especially with ticket disposition and some of the AI-powered behaviors. You can really start to get a sense of what your primary contact drivers are, what your primary reasons that people are contacting you, and what tickets are stagnating, which tickets are most likely to violate SLA. Those type of answers can only be found with proper data storage. And relying on the end user or relying on the agent rather, whose primary responsibility is to move through that ticket as quickly as possible. Sometimes they're not thinking about your reporting as their primary focus, nor as they should be, but they're not putting reporting and data cleanliness at the forefront of their mind. It's all about how can I fix this customer's problem quickly and efficiently and correctly.
Brandon, that's so insightful. Yeah, and I think yes, that is extremely insightful. And I recently talked, it's just to key into that. I mean, I recently talked to a company and their biggest issue was like you're saying, like they're getting orders that come in and when they get a customer service request or someone, wanting something to be done, I mean, of course they want to treat the person that paid $10,000 a little bit differently than the person that paid $100, right? They want to prioritize that. They want to get them fast responses. Yeah, and great way to highlight all of the pieces that you said. And I think a lot of times, like you can't expect agents who have this pressure to perform and answer questions and solve problems to have that back end insight on data management. And so how do you, yeah, what's measured is managed. And to do that, you need Zendesk reporting, and then you can find out even like what your most common questions are, right? What your most common problems are, and then you can create a whole FAQ section to answer those. I've also seen that be done too. We could probably talk a lot longer, but I guess my final question is we talked a lot about kind of the AI ticket autofill app from Knots and what that can do, but Brandon, you're so knowledgeable and have so much experience working with clients at 729. If someone wants to begin optimizing their Zendesk now, today, what's the first thing that you recommend they do?
Yeah, a little shameless plug. We do have a free Zendesk audit available for customers and for partners. So if you have some technical debt that you're not sure what to do with because you inherited a Zendesk and you're just trying to keep the lights on, or you're a brand new Zendesk customer and you want to make sure you're setting yourself up for a good foundation. Those are definitely things that we can help with at 729. The other thing that we would really focus on is helping bring data from outside of the Zendesk ecosystem into Zendesk or pushing Zendesk data out into another system. But to answer your question specifically, the first piece of advice I give to any customer that asks me that question is be the customer. When was the last time you called your own support phone number? When was the last time you played the part of an end user and used your Gmail account to try to open a support ticket and see what the experience is like? That is the fastest way to identify hotspots and low-hanging fruit in your instance. Because if you open a new ticket and you get 3 replies from the system, something's gone afoul. And unless you're spot checking, that's not something that the agent or the person who's managing the workflow is going to have direct visibility into.
I call that experiential learning. I think that's a great test of how things are running and how you would feel as a customer with that hat on. Brandon, thanks so much again. You're just a wealth of information, and again, you really were one of the first people that I saw in answers to this support forums. You're kind of like all over the place. You're very active and always adding value. What would be the best way for someone to get in touch with you if they're interested in connecting? You mentioned that awesome opportunity for kind of like a free diagnostic deep dive into check-in optimization, but how can they reach you?
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm on LinkedIn. There aren't too many Brandon Tids in the world, so please feel free to find me. We'll probably even link it in the show notes somewhere, my LinkedIn profile, or just 729solutions.com. 729solutions.com is the best way to contact us and get you in touch with the right people to get you set up with that free audit.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. Have a good one.
You too. Take care.